audio. I will set up a recording so I can make this available for anyone else who wants to refer back to whatever gets discussed here. So what we're doing here is we are collecting to talk about the homework assignment and look at some samples and talk about doing some debugging or talking about specifications or just general questions or comments or details related to homework 1. So with that said, I have set up the ability for screen sharing to occur. So anyone, I'll let this be like effectively a dialogue. So let me know who wants to go. Let me open up my chat window here too. Who wants to go ahead and either share their code or ask their question, or also let me make sure that people can disable the wait room. Okay, perfect.
So I just wanted to like get some help on how to submit it in like GitLab and put all like the Javadocs properly. I just don't want to. I'm done my code. I just want to submit everything right now.
Excellent. Okay, let's share the screen really quick.
Okay, that's my. This is all my homework so far.
Okay, let me see what you have here. So we have a project. Yeah, we have your source documents. Excellent. And do you have your Java docs that get produced from that?
That's what I'm saying. Like the Java doc, I put all my Java docs, but I don't know exactly where it would be.
So let's try doing this. Let's see. Go to tools. Have you run the Javadocs? Have you run the process to generate your Javadocs yet?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so go to tools inside of the top. Yeah, the top. And just so you know, it looks like with the Javadocs, you're probably missing some things in there. So in the Javadocs, when you have Javadocs, you have your comments. So they're Javadoc comments. Usually you want to put an @ and an @ returns if it returns or requires something. And let me see.
I put some. Yeah, I have some returns like here.
Yeah. So like for instance, you should have a. Oh, perfect. Yeah. So you do have it there. So just make sure it's on everything. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, with that said, let's go back to tools really quick. So go to tools.
Where would they be? Like I think it's covered from this thing.
Okay. So starting from left to right at the very top bar, it says File, Edit, View, Navigate, Code, Refactor, Build, Run, Tools. So go to Tools.
Oh, yeah, it's gonna click.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. And you'll see inside of there, one of the options, I think it's like the 4th option, is Generate Javadoc. And then what you want to do is you want to do Javadoc for the whole project. And then what you want to do is you can select an output directory. So you do want to select. So here's our options. You could do Javadoc scope, whole project, and then do Javadoc options. You want to go ahead and you want to output it in a different directory than your source code directory. So where it says output directory, select to put it in like a docs directory, or so that's going to be under the Javadoc. Yeah. And you can click the, try clicking the little, try clicking that, and that lets you navigate around. And I'd actually recommend putting it into your same kind of project folder, but in a different folder from your project folder. So go to navigate to where your project is.
Yeah.
Okay, but now I would make a top level directory here. So out is where your production level code goes, right? That's where your class files go.
Okay.
SRC is where your Java files go. That's where your source code goes. You should create another folder in here that's called docs. Yeah, and call it, yeah. And you know what? To be consistent, I would make it all lowercase. That's I'm very. I can be personally, like, I don't know. That's the thing for me. Like, if all my other folders are lowercase, then I want to be consistent with that. Okay, yeah. So So select that. So it's gonna. So now what IntelliJ is going to do is it's going to go through all of the classes inside of your project, and it's going to generate the Java docs for you, and it's going to deposit them inside that docs directory. So go ahead and hit that generate. Oh wait, here you can even see other ones, the annotations you can use as well. Okay, so now look. So when you do that, you see it's running Javadocs right now. You can see on your console how it's doing the processing, the parsing of everything. Yep. And now you see how there's an arrow next to the docs. Yeah, okay. It generated all your Javadocs. It's very painless to generate Javadocs with IntelliJ. So now go into your docs folder from here. You see how it now has an arrow. Before it didn't have an arrow because there's nothing in there. That's all. Now find the one that says index.html. Because that's your root Javadoc. So find the one that says, with HTML, if you're not familiar with HTML, the root HTML page is always called index.html, and it's going to be a file. So go to a file that's, I see it, double click it. And now, okay, you see on the very right-hand side, they have the ability to preview it. Oh, wait, what happened? Yeah, okay, you see on the very right, you have those little icons. It shows IntelliJ, it shows Chrome, it shows Mozilla. Yeah, you can click any one of those to actually open up the HTML file to inspect what it looks like. And then this gives you an idea of how the Javadoc got generated. You see this is your interface grillable. It shows also known implementing classes, grilled chicken, grilled food. You can click on that and bam, isn't this great?
Man, that's crazy.
That easy, huh?
Man.
Tooling is awesome.
Okay, now I made my Javadocs. So if I want to submit it, I just get basically like bring this file and bring it in my GitLab. So like
okay, I'm gonna show you something really cool. Okay. I'm a little bit more familiar with GitHub than GitLab. Do you have a GitHub account by chance?
Oh, GitHub, I think. Is that it? I don't know.
If not, let's go to GitLab. We'll just do GitLab. So let's go to your GitLab. Have you already been posting things to your GitLab?
Yes. Well, we made one for two. We made one for the lab and one for like one whole project for lab in that we already invited you for, I think.
Oh yeah. I got tons of emails about getting invited to all sorts of repos.
Yeah, I've been pushing so far. And then lecture's empty because we didn't do anything yet.
So, okay, so web IDE. What? I'll show you. Yeah, so you can just push it to your repo, and also what you can do is zip up your project directory and submit it on Moodle as well. So I want it both on GitLab and on Moodle. I need it on Moodle because Moodle flags me for who submitted and who doesn't submit. And I'm going to use the Moodle gradebook to kind of control all the grades for everything. So it'd be, and I'm going to do like online tests for Moodle as well. So it just makes my life easier if you can submit to both platforms.
So like this, basically.
Yeah. So zip it up. So yeah, so you could take your project that your IntelliJ project, you could zip it into a .zip file, and then you could go ahead and then submit that on Moodle. But yeah, then you can also do add it into your GitLab.
What the hell?
Let's see here. Can you do git status, git space status? Your branch is nothing to commit. Okay, so your branch is ahead of origin main by 1 commit.
So wait. Then do I just get pushing up?
Yeah, try it. Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's here now.
There it is.
So, and then I want to also zip this one up, right?
Yeah, then also take the same assignment, zip it up, and turn it into Moodle. Because what that'll do is inside of Moodle, which is essentially a learning management system that I'm using for being able to check everyone's submissions and assign grades, it won't let me assign a grade unless you have a submission. So clearly the easiest thing to do here is just to have you go ahead and zip it and submit.
Like this, right?
Yeah.
That should be
Excellent.
it.
And that's it. That's all you need for submission. Perfect.
I'm not gonna lie, you helped me a lot this semester. Like last semester, it was like a whole separate. This, I don't know how they taught it last semester. It was kind of difficult how they taught coding.
Oh, you're talking about in Java 1?
Yeah, like it was more like we were given our, like, how can I say, we were more given our code. It was like kind of like we given our code, they tell us just add like certain stuff, but like we really weren't knowing how to code in that class. I didn't believe. I kind of more learned from my brother. Like I always called him because he did computer science. I think he graduated like last semester, and like yeah, and I just always called him, and he told me what to do, and I learned from him mostly. And then this semester, like your code examples always helped.
Oh, excellent. And you like the homework where you're challenged to design something on your own then, and not
Yeah,
just
yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, because last semester was given to us basically.
Yeah,
And we
it's
just
a
have
lot
to.
of step by steps, and then you'd have to add a bonus, which it works, I think, for an introductory class, but at this level, everyone should now know how to code.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
No, I had a lot of people in like my friends that went in that class, and like the difference between me and them, like they left that class not knowing how to code. Like I knew how to code because I actually went my separate way and like learned it by myself.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's
well, hopefully you enjoy the rest of the semester, and we'll have more of these sessions. Let's move on to the next problem.
I got you.
Steven,
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So I kind of need you to look at, I think what I'm doing is correct as far as like the interfaces and applying them. It was more when I went into trying to do gems for like item upgrades and or for like mining. So like and I guess this is a coding issue and not necessarily what we're covering, but like as you can see, like I know how to make this work and how to make like the basic pass-through amount mined, it reduces it. This I'm a little sketchy on as far as like mining to produce a gem object. Am I going about that the right way, or is that?
So let me see here. So let me just take a quick look at, so I see you have this method, it's called mine, it returns a gem, and it has an integer value that is amount mined. And so is the idea there that you spend some amount of time mining?
It's
and
stacks.
or
So most of my gaming was World of Warcraft. So I'm thinking from a perspective of like you have stacks of ore and you mine them in sets of 5 or something, and that produces a gem.
Okay. So you're not having to give a, so you can have one of a couple different inputs, and anything is valid. So it sounds like you could either pass this method a collection of ore, or you can just put a number that represents the amount of ore that's getting passed through. does it matter what the OR is? Like with just having an integer value, you have to make all of your decision off of a numerical value. Is that enough data to be able to do what you want to do with this method?
So I think knowing what I know about what it'll be used for, I think that I'm not going to go any more in depth. Like, honestly, I probably shouldn't have done defense and attack gems, but it kind of worked. So I think I'd probably just leave it as, but the question I guess I have is, how do you then take this new object? Like, can you name this object something so that way you can reference it later? Like in a, let me pull my main method up and tab it over here. Oh, wait, I didn't split it yet. So like in my main method, I have where basically like rote testing rather, for each of the individual objects and stuff, and toString methods to convert and verify that like the things that are changing string values and integer values are changing them appropriately. And like my tests work for that. I have that. I haven't done any of the Javadocs yet, but I guess what I'm asking is, where can I instantiate or grab this thing right here that I'm instantiating?
Well, so okay, so I get what you're saying. So looking at this implementation, it looks like how are you making the decision? You're just returning a defense gem.
Right.
So right now, the way, if I'm reading this method correctly, you're taking the amount mined and you are returning, you're always returning a defense gem.
Right. You can see from that.
And I'm assuming defense gem is a child class of gem.
Correct.
Okay, so what you could do in your main method, if you want to test this out, I'd also do this, in a JUnit test as well.
Okay.
Would be to go ahead and create a gem variable in your main method, and then you would invoke the mine method, and that mine method is going to return back that defense gem, and then you can make whatever calls you need to on the gem, whatever method calls the gem allows. So let's say that the gem has a method that's called like get name, for instance. Then you can invoke the get name method on the gem, or let's say it has a gem type. So you want to see if the gem is a ruby or sapphire or topaz or something like that. You should be able to like, oh, here, is that your gem?
Yeah, this is the gem abstract.
Okay, so we have so gems are abstract because there's not enough detail there. It has an item base. So like things that I would implicitly think is maybe the gems have a type, maybe gems have a color. So it could be a green gem, it could be a red gem. A type would be like a category of gem, whether it's like, I don't know, whether it's ruby or what. And so when you create a defense gem might set the color to blue, and it might set the type to like sapphire, and it might have a name or whatever, like whatever properties you need to be able to access, you could define inside of this gem class.
Okay. So basically instantiate using the abstract class and then specify on the other side of the construct, like in the actual constructor, whether it's different attack. Okay.
All right. And you can have abstract methods in your abstract class too. So if you don't have a name, let's say defense gem has the name defense gem, but let's say gem doesn't have a name, you can have a get name method that's abstract in your gem class, and that forces every concrete class to have to implement a get name method. And so that way, even though you're returning a defense gem and gem itself doesn't have a name, if you create an abstract class, you can still call that method, that the get name method from any gem, so that if it's a defense gem or an attack gem or a magic gem or something like that, it'll be forced to implement that to be a concrete class, and that way you can verify that the name that it has is correct when you're doing your testing.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Like the motivation, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just using the abstraction to keep it more like organized in when you actually.
Keeps it more organized, but it also allows you to create variables of a more abstract type. And it's a contract. What the abstract methods are, it's a contract between your abstract class and a concrete class. And it's like, hey, concrete class, if you want to be a member of Club Gym over here, then you have to implement these methods.
Okay. All right. And then the other question I had was I was trying to create, and this is again going back to like a World of Warcraft idea, but I mean Diablo also, trying to create like an equipment class, but then I realized that maybe I should be doing this with, so I went about 2 ways in like an exploratory sense and I thought maybe I should make like an array list of objects of type armor base to store. Because what I'm essentially trying to get at is I want to be able to implement attack and defense values that are benefited, because otherwise the gems are pointless. And the issue is, I mean, as you can see from my commented out stuff, I can't, passing equipment isn't actually working. So I was thinking of, in this class, having it where, you know, you can total attack and durability and, but I don't know how to connect this to the player class, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and this is, so is it the equipment? So I'm assuming this, the equipment class is designed to model the equipment that a player can use, right?
So like, here's my shield class, for example. And so like it has, you know, an equip and then repair and whatnot.
Upgrade and yeah. And
Right.
yeah. And if it's anything like World of Warcraft, you have the ability to break it down into material components.
Exactly. Well, I haven't implemented like a disenchant or destroy other than just to create a junk item. But yeah, no, I guess what I'm asking is, how do I make it to where I can bind this class right here to one of these? I mean, is this doable, or is this, for lack of a better word, fakakta?
No, this is, so no, so it looks like equipment here, if I'm reading this correctly, will have weapon base, armor base. So this represents what a player can don at any time. So these are like the item slots.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Okay. Well, let's see here. I'm reading shield is an armor base. So you can have an instance of shield saved to offhand, but you could also potentially have it saved to head or chest or legs or feet.
Right.
So it'd almost be like, if like you want to ensure that that is better protected, that you might have something that is an interface. I would say maybe you can make interfaces that are like feet or legs or chest or whatnot. And then when you make a shield, it can you could use a marker interface. So those don't have anything, but allows you membership into that. And that way you can actually have a variable data type that's called feet and legs. And then anything that is a shield could implement feet. Does that make sense? So like, let's go to your shield really quick. So add into your set of your implements. Right now you implement breakable, repairable, equipable, and upgradable, right? Do a comma right there and then put hand. Exactly. And so here, now let's go to your offhand, for instance.
Okay.
And instead of armor base, put hand there.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So you're using that as like almost a more discrete selection of variable, like, I see what you're saying.
And now the only thing that can go there is something that implements the hand interface. So you'd have a hand interface. It doesn't have to have any methods or anything, but just by implementing hand, it now becomes a special member of the hand club, the hand group.
Gotcha. All right. And
then what you can do is any item that implements that can go into that slot.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. I'm trying to think if I had anything else to ask you about. I mean, beyond that, hold on, let's see. Does this look correct for, and I know I need the Javadoc comments still, but.
Oh, no, yeah. This looks great. I mean, I could tell you put a lot of time and thought into this.
And then I realized that I was just like coding things that I didn't know were going to work when I got to this.
Well, that's I think the big measure of what this is intended to do is it's probably the goal is to get you to start designing, like really designing with object-oriented principles, the way that they're utilized in industry, like not just like baby applications in academia, but like how are interfaces actually used to like control particular actions and behaviors inside of your code base, and how can you effectively give yourself like these micro APIs using an interface where we can program to the interface and use the decision of how we're programming to the interface to motivate how our concrete classes evolve over time.
Right.
And the more you do this, the more comfortable you'll get into the concept. Now, one challenge we had was I assigned this before we started to do a deep dive into the collections framework. And I think I spent a lot of time illustrating, when we look at a collection, what are all the interfaces and what are all the abstract classes that are part of its hierarchy. So you could see that the designers of this API, this framework that we're using as clients, how they decided to model all these diverse actions that occur between an array list and a linked list and a hash set and a linked hash set and a tree set and all these other things we're looking at, how they all end up deferring to the same bodies of things.
Right. So I guess then my final question is, as far as like completeness and like being ready to turn in, the one thing that I was going to implement that I hadn't yet is, like I was saying, that attack. Like I wanted to have basically where the enemy and the player could attack each other, and it would show the difference in health points or something like that. Or is that too much?
Well,
Am I doing too much?
That is not necessary for this.
Okay.
So
Right.
the goal, and so I just want to re-emphasize, and since I think that these are great questions that I think the other rest of the class might have, I want to highlight that one of our motivating goals with this assignment isn't to build an application that runs in and of itself. It's designed to build essentially a package. It's designed to build a framework that's intended to deliver to another developer so that they can use it to build a game. So that means you don't need a main method. You just need to build a series of interconnected Java files in a hierarchical way so that someone else can import that into their application and start building swords and shields and potions and other things. And then they'll use your item subsystem, your item package to start designing a game, because you would have solved their itemization problem, and they can focus on building players and monsters and everything else. So because of that, you're not really needing to deliver a main method, because you're not the application developer. You're just a framework developer. And so, yeah, this homework is to impress upon you how there is a role in development where you service other developers and you don't work on an application in and of itself, but you're creating an API. And that's why you're giving the Javadocs, so they know how to use your API. And that's why you're doing the JUnit testing, so that you can test all of your classes to make sure that they work the way you expect them to without having to build a main method or an application around it to test for completeness and correctness.
Okay. All right. So then I will take
now, I'm not going to stop you from doing the main method, but it's completely outside the scope of this homework.
Yeah, I mean, it's partially just to ensure that what I'm writing will actually work when someone else uses it. And that's why, I mean, it started out being like dagger, potion, shield, and like print out, and then just like destroy and upgrade.
Now, understand you can do JUnit to do the same thing, though. And so I do want to get you into the habit of using JUnit to start testing out code so that you don't have to build out main methods. The problem with main methods is everything has to be working at once. And the nice thing about JUnit is you could test it per class and per method even. So you can have a partially implemented class, and you can know how much of it works and how much of it you still need to fix. And you can design the JUnit tester before you design the class, and helps narrow in your scope. Because what often happens when you're developing, and I know this happens to me all the time, if I don't give myself tight specifications, and I get to really give myself tight specifications by the JUnit test. So like when I do a JUnit test, I'm like, if I pass this test, then my class is complete. Then I've done all the methods I need, and I know what input it passes in, and then I know what output it's going to give me back. And then I can move on to my next class inside of what I'm developing. If I don't do that, I feature creep myself. I keep adding methods, I keep adding more methods, and then I'll never get done programming, and then I'll get lost in dozens and dozens of methods per class. So it helps you narrow in your scope and really think deeply before you start implementing what everything should be doing. Does that make sense? So it's like a design tool to keep you on track.
Giving yourself limitations. No, I mean, I've definitely turned in homework before that I thought like I was not complete, and then it was like more than complete. Okay, so this is, other than Javadocs though, this is good.
Oh yeah, this is great. This is awesome.
Awesome.
I mean, this. You got lots of classes, lots of interfaces. I see abstract classes in there. That looks great.
Okay, awesome. All right, thank you.
Excellent. Who's next? Who wants to? Natalia? Are you there? Natalia might be away from keyboard right now.
Okay, I'll go next then.
Okay. And it's set up so if you want to, you should be able to share your screen.
Yeah. Can you see?
Oh yeah, this.
Okay, I'm just having trouble getting it to run correctly. When I do run it, I get all these error messages.
That's, well, it's a big stat trace. Okay, so let's see what we have here. So D does not equal java.lang.double. So let's see what's happening here. Your fail conversion, print integer. Oh, trying to print an integer. Oh, so you're doing print. Yeah, okay. So, but that's a double. So are you trying to print? So initially what I'm looking at, let me see here. Where's item weight? What is item? So online, looking at that, where's that?
Right here.
Okay, perfect. Oh, so that's a double. Okay, so if you're going to print that out, go back to that print statement. So the particular issue you're having is, it looks like you're doing a print statement and you're using, is it %D that you're using? Can you go back to the print statement? Inside of your code? Okay, yeah, oh yeah, it was, thought I just saw it pass by. So the error that I'm seeing here is that you're trying to print, I think it's right here. So right there, string text equals string.format. So you're doing a formatted string, and then where you're putting your placeholder values, you have %D, and %D is typically used for an integer value. If you want to do a fractional value, if you want to do a floating point value, then you have to use %F, because %F will allow you to do. Now, if you don't want the, now what it's showing you here is it's illustrating that there's some conversion that converting from floating point numbers to integer numbers is a lossy casting, which means that it would truncate whatever is on the right side of your precision, your radix point, and you'd lose whatever that value is. So if it was like 1.7, for instance, it would just drop the 0.7 to make it 1. And so Java doesn't let you do that unless you manually cast it to an int, and unless you explicitly cast it to an int before printing it out with the %d. So it looks like what that trace stack is doing right there is that you're just like using the wrong data type for the number in the way that it's modeled.
Okay.
And you kind of see what the error messages are saying, where it says illegal format conversion exception, and then it's showing D is not equal to a java.lang double. It kind of gives you kind of a clue as to what's happening there. And you can use some of the information inside of these stack traces to try to identify where in your code is, where the error is occurring, so that you can go and fix it.
Okay. So I also said.
Okay, let's see here. And okay, so I guess if everything's saved, are you trying to?
I can try running.
What is, yeah. Okay. Oh, are we getting the same error again?
Yeah.
Okay, so
The
let's
same
see.
main. I don't
What-
know.
Let's see. So from our main on line 7, so what's line 7? So we're doing a system.out.println on MS. So that's the magic scroll. Okay. And then that goes to, okay, so let's go to magic scroll. I see magic scroll at line 23. So let's go to line 23. And I see that. Now look at this. One nice thing, when you look at the stack trace here, just so you know, you see how they have some things that show up as blue and the others that show up as gray, and you have all
Yes.
this red text. So just to give you an idea, because I don't know if they cover being able to read the stack trace to you in Java 1 in the prior class.
I'm from UL, so no, we did not really go over that too much.
Oh, okay. Well, what's happening is it's called a stack trace because the most recent thing that led to the exception is at the top, and the thing that's at the bottom is the first thing that got invoked. So every application is a series of method invocations, right? So it's showing you the sequence of calls that happened, that occurred, that led to this exception. And so here, there's two different colors inside of parentheses. There's two different colors of where these classes exist at. The blues are yours, and the grays are things that are not yours. So typically what's happening is when you get an exception, it's probably something that you've done and not something that is pre-existing in one of these other Java files. So we already looked at the main method on line 7. The other blue one was on line 23. And we know that what we're getting as an exception at the very top is an illegal format conversion. And it's giving us the message that D does not equal java.lang.double, which tells me it's thinking D, whatever D is, it's thinking that that is supposed to be a double value, and it's not. So
Change that to F again.
Yeah, so let's see. Yeah, so let's see. So we have item name, item weight, quantity, and max stacks. And it looks like quantity is an integer, so that can be %D. I see item weight is, where is item weight? Where, so this is magic scrolls. Does it inherit the item weights from, where's item? Oh, there, I see. Yeah, it's okay, perfect. So item weight is 0.5. So that will have to be a %F because it's a floating point number, right?
Yes.
So %d is for integers only, so it's not letting you do that. Okay, and then let's see, and then max stack, I'm assuming that's an integer, so save that, and let's see if we can't go ahead and
Right.
okay, so now what's this? Oh, look, we're starting to get some output now. That's always good. And now we're getting something similar. Java.lang. So f is not equal to java.lang.integer. So we can see you see how you can start reading this though. So you see in the blue it says books Java at line 19. So it's books.java line 19. So we can go right to there to that, and it's going to be another one of these string format issues. So their quantity is not a floating right.
F for that and D for that.
And so just let's see.
There we go.
Excellent. And now it's working. So just a couple of misplaced of our placeholder symbols.
Okay. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Now, how do I get back? Stop.
Okay. Is there any other questions?
That's all for me.
Okay. Natalia sent me, I need help with my swords and weapon class. I have more things done in my sword class, but I guess I forgot to save because it's gone. Now I'm getting these errors. I'm pretty sure it's something simple, but my brain is tired. Okay, well, Natalia, you can go ahead and share your screen. And we can do a debug session. Excellent. And if you have a microphone, feel free, since this is more or less a, it'll make the barrier of communication much quicker if you have a microphone. Okay, so let's see here. Public class swords extends weapon and implements consumable and breakable. And then here, public swords, string name, and int damage. Oh, so the first thing you need to do in your constructor is you have to invoke your parent class's constructor. So here, what I imagine you want your constructor to do is return back an instance of a sword. And what it looks like what your sword is currently doing is it's trying to create a collection of swords, but that's almost impossible. So there's two things that are going to be problematic right now. The first is that your sword constructor is generating 5 different swords and saving them as weapons, as local variables inside of your constructor. Now, that's going to be a self-defeating problem, because if you tell your sword constructor to construct a sword, it's going to invoke your constructor again, which is then going to try to create another sword. And you're not just doing one sword, it'll try to create like 5 swords. So that'll really split your problem out with quite complexity. So do you see how, like, by invoking the constructor inside the constructor itself, it's going to create the effect of an infinite loop? So what you really want, so that code on creating different types of swords should go into something else, like maybe a sword tester file, or something like, I'd love to see that like a JUnit tester file. And that's where once you build the logic for how you create a sword, you can then test if your ability to instantiate swords is working the way you expect it to. So it's not that you shouldn't have lines 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 where you're making these swords. It's just it shouldn't go in your constructor. It should go in a separate sword tester file. Now, in your constructor, what you really need to consider doing is figuring out what models a sword, what behaviors, what properties does a sword have, what are the fields and what are the methods that a sword has that makes it uniquely different. Also, you have to look at what consumable and breakable interfaces have, and sword has to implement those. So your sword has to do a couple of things based off of the contract that I see with your class declaration. Since you claim that sword implements consumable and breakable, you have to implement the abstract methods in consumable and breakable. And then you have to decide what behaviors your sword has. So that isn't already in weapon. But also the first line of your constructor for sword should invoke its parent class's constructor. So that error that you're seeing on line 3 that says implicit super constructor weapon is undefined. Well, if you open up your weapon.java file, you probably have a constructor there. Yeah. And that constructor, you only have one constructor. So it requires a name and it requires a damage value. So before you can build a sword, since sword is extending weapon, it has to invoke its parent class's constructor using the super keyword and pass in values for name and damage. So for instance, if you go back to sword, comment out the code you have right now and know that or lines 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So comment out the current body and know that those are things that you should go ahead and put in a test file. But the first line of code that should go in here would be something like hit enter. Let's get a new line into, yeah, right there, super, type in super, because what super does is it allows this class to send information to its parent class and then do parentheses, because this allows us to invoke the parent class's constructor. Now the parent class's constructor, notice Intellij shows right now what the weapon.super, what the super class's parameters are. So here you can pass in name. So just type in the word name because your constructor is asking for a name. So we're just going to give that name to the weapon and then do comma and then do damage. Perfect. So what we're doing here is we're taking the name and damage that got passed into the sword constructor, and we're like, well, those are already variables. Those are already fields. Those are already properties that are also defined in weapons. So the sword shouldn't be responsible for managing that because it's going to inherit those from its parent class weapon. So before we can build a sword, we have to build the underlying weapon class, an instance of weapon, and that weapon requires a name and a damage. So sword requires a name and damage because weapon needs it. So we're just going to pass it from the constructor parameter list directly to the weapon constructor. Does that make sense? And notice how that removed that error. You had an error that was there before, right? That was on line 3. And by going ahead and invoking the parent class's constructor that sword extends, then that solves the problem. Now, you'll see you have these yellow squigglies inside of your consumable and breakable on line 1. And so what's likely happening there is you have abstract methods in the consumable interface, and you have abstract methods inside of your breakable interface that sword hasn't yet implemented yet. So you're going to have those. So go to break. Can you open up breakable? So inside breakable here, you have a destroy method. So you're going to have to put a destroy. Since sword claims to implement breakable, it has to have all the methods that breakable has. So you're going to have to put a method inside of sword called destroy that has that same method signature. So let's go into your swords really quick and just make another method underneath your constructor that's public void destroy. And yeah, perfect. Okay, now, and then save that. And then you'd want to do the same thing with consumable. And so it would be consume. Excellent. Okay, so now you should be redundant. So now you should be adhering to your contract between your sword and the fact that it implements consumable and breakable. Now, the next thing you'd want to do is right now, you'd also want to try to think of if swords, what makes swords different than a normal weapon? Like, are there any properties like instance variables that swords needs besides a name and damage? And it doesn't necessarily have to. Like, maybe what makes swords unique is the fact that it extends a weapon, it makes it a concrete class, and it has all the methods that are consumable and breakable. So that might just make it unique enough. Well, yeah. So the idea behind a constructor is a constructor should only make one instance of it should only create one instance of the class. So the class itself is like a blueprint for a sword. The constructor is the thing that gets invoked to actually build a sword for whatever client code is asking or requesting for it. So like in the sword class itself shouldn't be building swords. The sword class should just be focused on building one sword, and then you'd have like a sword test file that would then try to build multiple swords to see if it works. Ideally, you'd have a JUnit tester where you can go through and experiment building all sorts of different swords and see if you pass the test or not. And if you forgot how to use JUnit, I would definitely recommend either checking my slides on it or checking the lecture video. But yeah, so sword shouldn't construct swords; it should model swords. Some other Java file that is part of the application should be the thing that uses the sword.java file to build swords, to build instances of swords. Is there any other questions? Okay, perfect. If you run into any more issues, just send me a message on Discord then. And I can help you as you continue to refactor. And with that, I'll go ahead and bid everyone a... Was the way I create the swords correct here? Okay, let me see here. You have... So you're creating a new sword and you're passing in a name for the sword and a weapon. Yeah, that's exactly how you would create swords, because your constructor only has two requests in the parameter list. And ultimately, it probably requires those two things because that's what the weapon needs. And since the sword doesn't have any like unique properties in its own class, it's just sending that data to its parent class so it can get set. And then what looks like what is making sword unique is the fact that it implements consumable and breakable, and that it's also a weapon. It's a weapon that implements consumable and breakable, which means it has to have those methods. Now, you'll have to go back and figure out what does it mean for the sword to be destroyed, or what does it mean for the sword to be consumed? Like maybe sword needs to have a quantity variable so that consume or destroy actually do something. Or maybe sword needs a durability property or something so that these methods make sense. But in terms of how you're instantiating them, the way that you're calling the constructor and saving them into a variable, yeah, that's exactly correct. You just need to put it in a different file, and probably a file that is either a JUnit tester or a main method. Okay. But let me know if you get into any more hangups, and I'll help you work through it.